Moving on to the next stakeholder, we talk about the conformity assessment bodies or conformity bodies. Now, as you may have realized going through the assignments in earlier modules, only when one starts opening the horizons of all that needs to be assured and can be assured is when your mind can start thinking beyond to start developing new programs and how existing programs may have adjacencies and a potential opportunity that could be sitting right in front of your eyes. Let us spend some time to look at the genesis of the conformity assessment bodies. In some regions and countries, governments or even state have been entrusted with assurance. I think it stems from the responsibility on the state in certain type of political systems. Often conformity programs run by government owned or government bodies themselves with government lineage have had products or services which are critical to the health, safety, security of a given nation or a geography. It is also likely that these programs may be a bit archaic in the way they are run or may have just minimum requirements that they assess. Then there are those which are run by or have been initiated by the industry groups. Examples are, associations like the Air Movement Control Association from Chicago, AMCA, who is just an industry association from United States. And over the years, it has evolved and is now offering conformity programs for fans and few of the products relating to the heating, ventilation, air conditioning industry. I'm adding some links in the extra reading sections for you to read about some of the conformity programs that have such origins like Fairtrade USA or Regenerative Organic Alliance. The list is massive, and it is only when you start looking and reading through how these programs have come to be is that when you start realizing the possibilities are huge. And then there are privately owned bodies. These bodies, conformity assessment bodies, could be for profit, which is a recent and a growing trend in the last decade as the in the industry. As the tech industry can potentially give some extraordinary profits in different phases of their life. Or these could be not-for-profit entities who are offering conformity assessment services. By the way, it should be known that not-for-profit does not mean that they cannot make money. It typically means that the profits, if made after paying employees what is deemed appropriate, are invested back in the firm. These entities, just like other conformity bodies, could be local bodies, could be regional bodies, could be international bodies. The private ones could even be running state or government created conformity programs or privately created programs whose demand drivers have been made strong enough that they don't need government backed laws to keep them in business. We will dwell further on this, of course. Moving to accreditation as a function and accreditation bodies who are key foundation to the industry. They create trust as they are the checkers of the checkers. What is accreditation? A very nice note written on a blog by Peter Unger, who was the co-founder and executive director of his consultancy company, and in the past, the CEO of A2LA and an ILEC chair. He defined accreditation is a recognition of competence as contracted with certification, which is a recognition of conformity. It is interesting to know that the first national system of laboratory accreditation was started after World War One in Australia by the National Association of Testing Authorities, or NATA. An accreditation came to fore when it provided a suitable solution to facilitate the acceptance of cross-border tests, to facilitate trade, and to reduce the technical barriers as envisioned by GATT before it became the World Trade Organization, or WTO, the TBT. Now, you may ask the difficult question about the recursive problem. Who is checking the accreditation bodies? In one way of looking, no one is really checking them the way conformity assessment bodies are required to be checked to legitimize their services. Sometimes, though, they do have several constructs, on the other hand, to provide for the much needed assurance. They rest on networks who are cross checkers in a way, often regional but sometimes international as well. Examples are the Asia Pacific Laboratory Accreditation Corporation, APLAC, you can look it up. It is an organization of laboratory reference material producers and inspection body accreditation bodies in Asia Pacific, who formally all came together and signed an MOU in 1995. So 20 accreditation bodies of Asia have come together to cross accept each other and cross look at each other. A similar but a larger body is the International Accreditation Forum, or IAF, which is a worldwide association of accreditation bodies and other bodies of interest in the conformity assessment fields of management systems, products, processes, etc. There is also ILAC, which is the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. You can look these up, but ILAC is an international organization for accreditation bodies operating in accordance to 17011, 17025, and so on and so forth. There are more details which are suggested reading section later, but in a sense, it is good to know that several times when a conformity assessment is being mandated through a law, the accreditation bodies are under the purview of the law in some form. More on that later. Do you remember this toolbox from the first module? And I'm sure if you have been operating in the tech industry, there are several of these standards that you may already very well know. And in case you know them all, I think it makes sense that you and I should talk separately, and we could grow modules of this slide further. Let me see how many of these standards, which are part of the ISO committee, which is responsible for conformity assessment, also called as CASCO, have published. Now, the role of this ISO committee is to develop policy and publish standards related to conformity assessment, but it does not perform conformity assessment activities. So, these standards are the standards that define the tech industry. In the first module, we talked about specific standards which are defining the industry. So if you talk of an ISO 9001 as a standard, ISO 9001 does not define the tech industry, but if someone points to ISO 17025 or 17020 or 17011, this standard is the language of the tech industry. Now, this list does look very daunting, but if you look closely, 15 of the standards on the screen are actually parts of one standard, which detail the requirements for bodies providing audit and certification of management systems. It is very likely that you know these certifications which are related to management system like ISO 9001, 14000, etc. are some of the biggest success stories of ISO as well as biggest success stories of the conformity assessment industry because they are very pervasive across the world. In the resources section, I'm adding some links to a large repository of presentations and information about many of these standards. They are a great resource to get some very good insights. Though I would not insist that you read all of them, but if you do, I think it can be very beneficial to you. Let me move to a smaller but a more focused set. In my opinion, these are the key ones. So if you were to head the research and development or an R&D center of a large conformity body or a third-party think tank to the conformity industry, then this set creates the heart of your operation. Each one of them can open, in my opinion, uncountable opportunities across industries in a region or worldwide. Some of these are very, very interesting. The 17020, which is talking about the operation of bodies performing inspections. 17024, which is operating certification of persons. 17025, which is testing and calibration laboratories. ISO 17021, which is series from part 1 to part 15, as well as 17 or 65, which is bodies certifying products, processes, and so on and so forth. In fact, all of them are standards which can create a large set of opportunities in the future. Now with this, let me move towards the end of this section and point you towards the reading assignment. You can find all of these in the next section, some links, some wonderful reads that are very, very pertinent and will form a good basis of the subsequent modules and projects that are coming your way. See you on the other side.